Hey folks, this is Jake from the Bozo Pods here, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make your very own Isopod enclosure. Let's get right into it. Alright, so before we begin building this, we're going to have to go over some supplies. So we're going to have a small list of supplies. Here we go. This is what you're going to need. A 6-quart tub, cork bark, moss, springtails, leaf litter, and any organic topsoil of your choice. Alright, so now we got our resources. Let's get started on building the enclosure. Alright, so to start this off, we're going to need our 6-quart container. So make sure to have these drilled already because you need that for ventilation so it's not too humid, especially for these. This is going to be for Armadillidium gastroid isopods, so they need a bit more ventilation. So we're going to start by putting down some topsoil. So I like to use Repti soil for mine because I just use that for the geckos anyway. So we're going to apply we're going to do 2 layers of the Repti soil. You'll see why later. So we're going to put our first layer now. So here we go. We're going to put some scoops of the Repti soil. You're not going to need too much Repti soil, or really any soil, because it's just a 6-quart container. So you should be good. We're going to put a bit more, just to make sure to top it off nicely for this first layer. Bit more. And this Repti soil I really like to use too is because it has a lot of biodegradables for the isopods. So it has a lot of dead sticks, a bit of dead leaves in it, so it's really good for the isopods. Alright, and now for this part we're going to add some moss. So this is why we're doing the 2 layers. So we're going to put it on this side of the enclosure. The reason why we're adding the moss is so it provides humidity to the enclosure, and also it's really good so that the isopods can drink out of. So this will be our damp side / moist side of the enclosure. So we're going to put over here. As you can see, it's getting in the rest of the enclosure, but that'll be fine because we could just mix that in like so. I'm going to put a bit more just to top it off. Make it look nice, big and fluffy. Alright, so we're going to continue adding some more topsoil. Alright, and now we are going to add our springtails. So in a lot of guides, a lot of other guides, you'll see that they don't really include springtails, or it's a very minor inclusion. But springtails are basically essential because it helps keep out any pests that you're going to have in the enclosure, such as fungus gnats. They're also helpful to keep mold out of the enclosure because they'll eat any mold that's in the enclosure. So they're pretty helpful, and also another helpful thing is that they'll eat any scraps that are left over from the isopods from whatever you're feeding them. So I like to put these all around the enclosure because they're really good to have. You can kind of see them moving around a bit. You're going to put a bit more. I like to make sure it's everywhere with the springtails. Alright, now we're going to grab our piece of cork bark. So a recommendation with the cork bark is to buy just a big piece of cork bark and cut it up instead of buying one small piece. That's going to save you a lot more money. So like when I went to the Reptile Expo in New Hampshire, I bought a big piece for $16 and cut it up into 4 pieces. So instead of spending $5 per piece, I spent $4 per piece. I think that's a pretty good deal. So we're going to put that down there. This is a good piece too because of the curve inside. So it's kind of like a bubble. Because I find the isopods kind of like their cork bark to be a bit off the ground, especially with the dairy cows, because they like to crawl on top of it, as you can see in the Instagram posts. So now we're going to grab our leaf litter. So this leaf litter is actually from outside. I had to cook it because if you don't, then you're going to have a bunch of pests in your enclosure. So if you guys want, I can do a guide on how to cook them, but yeah. It saves you a lot more money too. just a bit more time because you got to go harvest it from outside. So we're just going to put that around the enclosure. So the reason why I'm putting this is because this provides a hiding area for the isopods so they feel secure, and also it's good so they can nibble on because they also use it as their main food source, which I recommend. Oh, and right here I just noticed you also should make sure everything's down and not near the ventilation so no isopods will escape. So it's also good though to supplement the isopods diet with protein too, such as minnows, or also calcium, such as eggshells or cuttle bone from the pet store. A lot of people recommend using fish food, but I wouldn't recommend using that because if you use fish food, it can have color enhancers and make your isopods appear differently. So remember, main diet, leaf litter, supplemented with protein. So we're going to add a bit more leaf litter, just make sure it's nice and full. Now we're going to mist the other side of the enclosure. So we're going to make sure each side is nice and wet, but mainly the wet side needs to be nice and wet. The other side just needs a light misting. So we're just going to mist that down slightly. You don't want to mist it down too much because you want to have that humidity gradient so the isopods can go to each side, depending on how they're feeling. And that's all for your isopod enclosure. Alright folks, and that was how to make your very own isopod enclosure. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you guys learned something new. And I hope you guys like and subscribe if you guys liked the video. Thanks for watching.